My name is Evelyn Tran, 29, MS in Machine Learning from Stanford, lead ethics engineer at OrbisTech. Well, I was. You know how people say silence is golden? In my case, silence was corporate strategy. It happened on a Tuesday. The lights in the boardroom flickered slightly, smart bulbs glitching from yet another firmware update. But the tension was sharper than any fluorescent hum. I sat at the far end of the conference table. My slides were up. My report printed, spiral-bound, color-coded. 12 months of audit logs. A flagged bias rate of 73% against non-white users. And worst of all, the team knew. "Let us be clear," I said, voice steady. "If this ships in Q3, it won't just be unethical. It'll be illegal under the new Fair Data Act." Across the table, Carter Lin, CTO and startup messiah with his Patagonia vest and billion-dollar smirk, leaned back in his chair. "Evelyn," he said, drawing out my name like a warning. "This isn't a TED Talk, it's a product review." The room chuckled politely. I didn't. "I'm not here to preach," I replied. "I'm here to prevent the company from releasing an AI that penalizes users based on skin tone and zip code." Carter's eyes hardened. "And I'm here to keep us on track for a $300 million Series D." At the head of the table, Chairman Dwight Lancaster, a man who once called himself a data libertarian, adjusted his cufflinks. "Well," he said finally, "perhaps Evelyn would benefit from a less visible role for now. Let her focus on internal compliance. We'll keep her out of the press releases. Translation, shut her up before investors catch wind." I looked around the room. No one met my eyes. Not Maya from UX, who once cried over the exact same concerns in the hallway. Not Julian from DevOps, who nodded when I first flagged the data set. Not even the diversity VP, who 2 months ago gave me an award for ethical leadership. Silence. That evening, I got the HR email. Effective immediately, I'd been restructured into an internal advisory role with no direct reports. No stakeholder access. No budget. I stared at the email, barely blinking. Then I did something unexpected. I didn't reply. I packed up my desk, took my cactus, deleted my Slack, and walked out with nothing but a USB drive containing every report they ignored. As I stepped into the parking lot, the automatic lights flicked off behind me. I wasn't afraid. I wasn't angry. I was thinking about Noircode Labs, the AI ethics cult Carter once mocked in an all-hands meeting. Run by idealists, underfunded, dismissed. Until now, I pulled out my phone and made a single call. "Hi, this is Evelyn Tran. You don't know me yet, but I think we're about to change the future." 6 weeks. That's how long it took for me to disappear from their radar. No LinkedIn update, no blog post, no dramatic takedown, just silence. They thought I was humiliated, that I'd gone back to consulting or maybe academia. Carter even told someone at TechCrush that I'd burned out. Poor Evelyn, too sensitive for startup life. But I hadn't disappeared. I was digging tunnels. I met with Noircode Labs in a co-working basement in Oakland, surrounded by whiteboards, ramen cups, and passion. The founder, Dr. Mira Iqbal, MIT legend turned rogue ethicist, eyed me skeptically at first. "You're from OrbisTech," she said, not unkindly. "Why now?" I slid the USB across the table. "Because I've seen the future you're trying to stop, and I helped build it." She plugged it in. Her face changed by the third folder. By the end of that night, I was on the team. No titles, no perks. Just the hardest work I'd ever done, fixing the problem I'd once been paid to ignore. We didn't have venture capital. We had a $20K grant, 3 old laptops, and more late nights than sleep. But we also had something Orbis never did: conviction. We called it Thalia, an AI ethics layer that could audit any model in real time. Open source, tamper-proof, capable of red-flagging discriminatory outputs before they hit production. At first, no one cared. Big tech brushed us off. News outlets wouldn't cover yet another AI watchdog. But quietly, things began to shift. Thalia got picked up by a nonprofit using it to analyze housing loan denials. Then by a group of medical students researching diagnostic bias in Black patients. Then, unexpectedly, by Congress. A junior staffer from the Senate Committee on Technology Ethics reached out. She'd run our code against the outputs of several consumer AI tools. The results? Discrimination. At scale, across multiple platforms. That's when the calls started coming in. One night, I was debugging a parsing issue when Mira walked in, holding her phone. "You've got a meeting request," she said. "From who?" She didn't smile, just handed me the phone, Department of Justice. I stared at the screen. Not with fear, with clarity. Because here's the thing about silence: people assume it means defeat. They forget that some people build in the dark, and when they emerge, it's not with noise, it's with power. Global AI Ethics Forum, San Francisco. 9 months since the day I walked out of OrbisTech with nothing but a cactus and a USB drive. The ballroom at the Regency Tower buzzed with high-gloss confidence. VCs in tailored blazers, founders with wireless mics clipped to their designer collars, and analysts pretending not to notice each other's name tags. At the center stage, a massive LED screen looping OrbisTech presence, the future of ethical AI. I stood just outside the main doors, watching the final rehearsals through the glass. Carter Lynn was already on stage, running through his talking points with a handler. He looked comfortable, smug, like a man about to rewrite headlines with his AI assistant, or by X3. Zero, a voice model trained on inclusive global data, according to their press kit. He didn't know I was here. Not yet. At 10:28 a.m., 2 minutes before the keynote, my phone buzzed. Stage mic is patched. Live stream ready. Amira, Thalia is warmed up, waiting on your cue. Ren, our security lead. I smiled, adjusted my lapel, and walked in. No spotlight, no announcement. Just a seat in the 3rd row center where the cameras could see me, and more importantly, where Carter would see me. 10:30 sharp. Lights dimmed. "Ladies and gentlemen," the MC began, "please welcome the visionary behind Orbi X3. Zero, our keynote speaker, Carter Lynn." Applause erupted. He walked out like a rock star in a hoodie, palms open, charisma weaponized. "Ethics isn't a feature," he began. "It's the foundation of every decision we build into our models." I nearly laughed. He continued. "With Orbi X30, we've eliminated bias, ensured safety, and unlocked scalable empathy." That's when I tapped my screen. The signal was clean. On the jumbo screen behind Carter, Thalia activated, silently at first, overlaying his live feed with audit results in real time. The audience murmured. Carter turned, confused. Behind him, the bullet points of his pitch began dissolving, replaced by glowing red flags. Output bias detected. Racial profiling at 62% rate. Suppressed test logs. Flagged but unreported failure cases, 43 instances. Synthetic voice training. Unauthorized recordings from elder care facilities. He turned back to the audience, flustered. What is this? I stood. One by one, eyes turned toward me. Carter froze. You're trespassing, he barked. Security. But the MC stepped aside. The staff didn't move, because they already knew. The event organizers had received Thalia's report 48 hours ago. They just hadn't told Carter. I took the stage, uninvited but undeniable. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, calm and direct. My name is Evelyn Tran, co-developer of Thalia. The ethics protocol Carter's model just failed. Gasps, whispers. OrbisTech has failed independent audits, suppressed internal data, and is now under formal review by the DOJ and the Federal AI Ethics Board. Carter charged forward. You don't get to hijack. I held up a government-issued document. This is a cease and desist order, signed last night. Effective immediately, all OrbisTech deployments are suspended pending investigation. Carter's face turned to stone. He turned to the crowd for support, but the room was already shifting away from him. Because right then, behind me, the screen updated once more. U.S. government ethics contract awarded to NOIRCODELABS. Primary contact, Evelyn Tran. The room exploded. Reporters stood. Investors scrambled to make calls. And Carter, he just stood there. I warned you once, I said quietly, close enough for only him to hear. Ethics isn't a checkbox, it's a reckoning. The storm began before I left the stage. Live blogs, tweets, breaking news banners that blinked like emergency lights. Whistleblower hijacks OrbisTech keynote. New ethics AI exposes industry. Giant live at global forum. But this wasn't about headlines. This was about resetting the frame. 2 hours later, I stood behind a new podium, this time by official invitation. The Federal AI Ethics Commission had moved their afternoon session forward. The stage wasn't branded. Just a seal, a mic, and a hush so quiet you could hear the flashbulbs recharge. I wore the same suit. I didn't need a change. What we were about to unveil would be the change. Mira stood to my left, Ren to my right. Behind us, a large screen displayed a single word: Thalia. Transparent, human-aligned, learning, integrity algorithm. I took a breath. Today, I began, we're no longer reacting to the failures of the past. We're redefining the standards of the future. The pitch that wasn't a pitch. I didn't use marketing language, I used truth. Thalia wasn't built to replace AI. It was built to check it, to audit, correct, and, when necessary, intervene. A black box no more. With Thalia, the code that judges us can finally be judged. And this time by the people it affects. Then came the moment we'd waited for. As of today, said Senator Ramirez, reading from the freshly signed accord, the Department of Health and Human Services will begin a nationwide rollout of Thalia across its diagnostic AI systems. This initiative is expected to impact over 28 million patients, ensuring algorithmic transparency in life and death decisions. The room erupted, not in noise but in gravity. Doctors, lawmakers, parents. For once, the future of AI wasn't about profit, it was about people. Meanwhile, across the bay, OrbisTech stock dropped 19% by close of market. Carter Lynn resigned the next morning. A one-paragraph press release. No apology. The DOJ confirmed they'd opened an inquiry into data misuse and non-disclosure. I didn't celebrate, not in the way they had when they pushed me out, because here's the truth. Revenge is satisfying, but reform is seismic. That evening, as I walked out of the Capitol building, a young intern caught up to me. Ms. Tran, she asked breathlessly. Do you think this will actually change the industry? I paused, then smiled, not out of arrogance but clarity. It already has. 3 days later, I was back in the building I once called home. OrbisTech HQ. Now a war zone of non-disclosure meetings and investor damage control. I wasn't there for revenge. I was there because the Federal Ethics Committee had subpoenaed internal files and asked me to verify their integrity. Funny, isn't it? The girl they once locked out of the system now held the master key. As I passed the old biometric scanner, it blinked once. Welcome back, Evelyn. I walked through the lobby like a ghost of the future, the past unable to touch me anymore. Upstairs, I saw him, Carter Lynn, slouched in a glass office, unshaven, on a call that clearly wasn't going well. His eyes met mine briefly through the glass. No anger, no arrogance, just recognition. He stood, hesitated, then stepped out. We stood face to face, no cameras, no podiums, no security guards. I didn't think you'd come back, he said. I didn't think you'd still be here, I replied, a beat of silence. You won, he muttered. I shook my head. You still think this was a competition. And with that, I walked past him. That night at Noircode Labs, the team gathered in our tiny, overcrowded kitchen, half pizza, half champagne, full chaos. On the wall, a hand-drawn poster. Thalia V1, 0 launched. Over 50 hospitals integrated. Public API, live at midnight. Mira raised her glass, to building better tools. Someone added, to burning the old ones down. We laughed, but I stayed quiet for a moment, because I wasn't thinking about Carter or Orbis or the headlines. I was thinking about my mother. Flashback, the story I never told. She wasn't a techie, she was a nurse. A refugee who taught me that ethics isn't about ideals. It's about what you do when no one's watching. She died of a preventable heart condition, one that wasn't flagged in time, because the AI at her clinic prioritized low-risk profiles for follow-ups. She died because someone optimized the wrong variable. That was the first time I questioned the machine. Now, I help write the code, the interview that went viral. A week later, I sat down for a segment with 60 Minutes. At the end, the host asked, "What's your message to young women who have been told they're too emotional for leadership?" I looked straight into the camera. Emotion doesn't make you weak, it makes you aware. And awareness is what turns coders into architects. Don't shrink, build better. The final frame. At a public square in DC, a digital billboard displayed a short message on loop, Thalia Live, transparent AI for all. Beneath it, a name in smaller font, in memory of Evelyn Tran, my mother. As I watched people stop, read, and nod, I realized something. They won't remember every line of code I wrote, or the courtroom testimonies, or even the headlines, but they will remember this, that once a woman was told to stay quiet, and instead, she rewrote the rules. You don't know me yet, but I think we're about to change the future.